Good morning, students. In last lecture, we have finished with the remaining anatomy and physiology of the retina, in which we discussed the rhodopsin cycle and visual acuity testing and different forms of vision, like form vision, contrast sensitivity, etc. So, in today's lecture, we will be covering the signs, symptoms and investigations in retinal diseases. If you are suspecting a retinal case, what relevant clinical history you are going to ask, positive questions, negative questions, so that the history can give you some clue of the type of retinal disease. And then on examination, what are the signs we elicit in a retinal condition, and then what retinal investigations you will advise in a case of retinal disease. So once we finish this, next time onwards we will be starting with the retinal diseases proper. Main complaint in a case of retinal disease is of course diminution of vision. But the characteristics of the vision is always painless in a case of retinal diseases. Retinal disease is never present with pain or congestion of the eyeball. So it is a painless disease without any red eye presentation. That is the feature of retinal pathology. Now this diminution of vision can be sudden and painless. The causes of sudden painless loss of vision will be in a retinal condition, retinal detachment, then retinal vascular occlusions, which include central retinal vein occlusion, branch retinal vein occlusion, or central retinal occlusion or branch retinal artery occlusion. Then wet ARMD can present as painless sudden loss of vision, and vitreous hemorrhage or retinal hemorrhage involving the macula can also present as sudden painless loss of vision. As far as hypertensive retinopathy is concerned, patients of grade 4 hypertensive retinopathy can present as sudden painless loss of vision. Next type of vision loss in a retinal disease can be progressive gradual painless loss of vision. Now the conditions which cause painless progressive gradual loss of vision are retinitis pigmentosa, dry ARMD, that is age-related macular degeneration, diabetic retinopathy, hereditary macular degeneration, or drug-induced maculopathy like chloroquine-induced maculopathy. They present with painless progressive gradual diminution of vision. Next important complaint in a retinal disease can be of floaters. Now floaters can be physiological, but they can be pathological also. Physiologically, with age, normally transparent vitreous gel liquefies and breaks up, leading to the presence of little particles and fibrous strands floating into the vitreous cavity. These debris in the vitreous cast shadows onto the retina, and patient then complains of seeing black dots, sometimes rings, sometimes strands or spider-like images that are more noticeable against a bright background, and they move even when the eye is stationary. These floaters indicate some form of vitreous degeneration and liquefaction and are usually benign and age-related, and they are also common sometimes in myopes in younger age. As long as they are not worsening, you can just counsel the patient, and this is of course after thorough retinal examination, and tell them they seem to be physiological, and ask the patient to be observant or vigilant on the floaters. If they suddenly increase or if they are associated with flashes of light, then it becomes an emergency and you have to search for the retinal breaks. Otherwise they are benign. Some showers of dots or sudden increase in their numbers could indicate formation of a retinal tear, especially if associated with flashes of light. So in that case, patient has to rush to the hospital and he is subjected to the detailed retinal peripheral exam to rule out retinal breaks and further treatment whatever is needed. Next is photopsy or perception of flashes of light. So next to floaters is flashes of light. Photopsia or is a phenomena in which patient perceives flashes of light or has a sensation of flickering of lights. This occurs due to vitreous shrinkage or liquefaction. Vitreous is a gel, but by any pathological process, if it gets liquefied or if it gets shrinkaged, which causes a pull on vitreoretinal attachments, it causes traction on the areas where vitreous is attached to the retina, and then it leads to mechanical irritation of the photoreceptors. It leads to flashes of light. So generally this may be benign or age related, but seriously it could be a note of developing retinal tear or early retinal detachment. So increased number of floaters with perception of flashes of light is indicative of impending retinal tear or early retinal detachment, and these patients should undergo indirect ophthalmoscopic exam, and peripheral retinal degeneration should be looked for, particularly if the flashes of light are associated with floaters. Metamorphopsia is a third important clinical symptom seen in a retinal condition. Metamorphopsia is a phenomena where the patient perceives objects to have an altered, irregular contour or shape. Shape gets distorted as shown in the diagram. The tree, you can see, appears to be bent. The shape is altered, and again this shape, alteration of this shape can be of two types. There can be micropsia, where the object appears to be smaller than what it is, or it can be macropsia, where the object appears to be enlarged as compared to what originally it is. And third is metamorphopsia, where object appears to be distorted. Now, once you diagnose there is metamorphopsia, this has to be reviewed for any changes over time. So over time this metamorphopsia is worsening or not. For that, Amsler grid is a graph paper like thing which has central dot, and it is surrounded by regular squares. The chart is known as Amsler grid, which one will have to know in details. So my homework to you is know about Amsler grid, at how many degree of vision is tested by Amsler grid, what are the different types of Amsler grids and how they are used in a case of patient complaining of metamorphopsia. The main common cause of metamorphopsia is age-related macular degeneration involving the macula, or it can be conditions like central serous retinopathy where center of the macula is involved. Now, how the Amsler grid is to be used, what are the types of Amsler grid? This is a homework which you will go through, study the details and submit to our department. Now, what happens in this process of metamorphosis, that I will in short tell you. Because the architecture of the cones or photoreceptors is disrupted, you get wavy margins of the images, wavy margins to the objects which are seen. When the lot of separation of the cones happens because of the edema fluid, the number of cones stimulated will be less by the object, resulting into micropsia. And reversely, if there occurs crowding of the cones, number of cones stimulated will be more and there will be macropsia. So this is the pathophysiology of micropsia and macropsia and metamorphopsia. So go through the details of Amsler grid and submit to the department as a homework. Then there will be night blindness. As we have seen in the rhodopsin cycle, night blindness, for night vision you require vitamin A. So main cause of night blindness is hypovitaminaceous A, or you can even get vitamin A deficient night blindness in disease like retinitis pigmentosa, where photoreceptors are affected. Third condition can be pathological myopia, where night blindness, patient can complain of night blindness. Then scotomas. Scotomas are nothing but you can see field defects. So various retinal conditions can present with various field defects. So field analysis can become a important diagnostic tool in case of retinal diseases. Some scotomas are positive, some scotomas are relative, absolute and negative. So find out details of the scotomas, how they help us in diagnosing the retinal diseases. Color blindness, we have last time seen color blindness. Optic nerve diseases are characterized by red-green blindness, whereas retinal diseases are characterized by blue-yellow type of color defects. So they become important part of retinal investigations, and some color blindness are hereditary, where no treatment can be sought for. Then RAPD is a type of visual pupillary defect. Mostly it's characteristic of optic nerve diseases, but advanced retinal diseases can have RAPD, just like we will see ischemic type of CRVO or central retinal vein occlusion can present with RAPD. So RAPD can be a feature of retinal diseases. Mostly it is a feature of optic nerve diseases, and it is characteristic of optic nerve diseases. Raised IOP in a retinal condition, generally you have to suspect the neovascularization of the iris. So if there is NVT, neovascularization of the disc, neovascularization elsewhere, which subsequently lead to neovascularization of the angle and neovascularization of the iris, can lead to secondary neovascular glaucoma, which is a sequence of retinal disease like diabetic, proliferative diabetic retinopathy. So raised IOP in a case of retinal disease, you have to suspect neovascularization secondary to proliferative diabetic retinopathy. Now sometimes optic nerve disease can mimic macular disease. So you must know what are the differences between the two. So by definition, optic nerve disease involves injury to the retinal ganglion cells and the axons that constitute the optic nerve. By definition, macular disease involves injury to the retina in the fovea and parafovea. Clinical features of optic nerve disease. Just now we discussed afferent pupillary defect, that is a characteristic of even earlier optic nerve lesion. Then there will be severe dyschromatopsia. As I have already told, red-green blindness is characteristic of optic nerve disease. Then darkening or desaturation of colors and objects. So there will be desaturation of the colors. So if you ask patient to see with normal eye the red color and with the abnormal eye the red color, he will appreciate that the affected eye, the red color appears to be desaturated. This is seen with optic nerve diseases. Then there can be phosphenes with eye movements, and pain is associated with certain optic neuropathies like optic neuritis. Whereas in macular diseases, there is severe loss of central acuity. Then there can be metamorphopsia, the one which we discussed just now, and there can be slight photophobia and glare with macular diseases. In history, optic nerve diseases develops over hours to days, stabilizes, and then shows improvement in ensuing weeks, which is seen with optic neuritis. There can be sudden loss of vision in few optic nerve diseases like AION, whereas macular diseases have acute or insidious in onset. Physical examination, 3 tests, the measurement, pupillary response, color vision, and sense of brightness testing are particularly sensitive to impairments of the optic nerve. Whereas macular diseases, unless and until extensive retinal disease is there, they may produce mild abnormalities in color vision, brightness sense, and pupillary response. This is usually accompanied by marked visual loss. So these are the differences between optic nerve disease. In fundoscopic exam, there can be optic disc swelling, sectoral disc edema like AION, lumps and bumps, that is optic nerve drusen, pathologic cupping, that is seen in glaucoma, sectoral optic atrophy, which is known as bow tie optic atrophy, or secondary optic atrophy, or butterfly optic atrophy, are patterns of optic disc changes that indicate nerve damage of specific types. Whereas as far as macular disease is concerned, there can be serous neural retinal pigment epithelial detachments, retinal edema, vascular abnormalities, hemorrhages or hardens or exudates. As far as visual field testing is concerned, optic neuropathies may cause large variety of visual field defects, some of which are specific. For example, toxic or nutritional deficiency optic neuropathies cause centrocecal field defects. Diseases of the optic nerve head often produce arcuate or altitudinal field defects, whereas generally macular diseases produce a central scotoma with a zone of metamorphopsia that surrounds it. Investigations photostress test. Find out about the photostress test that show little or no prolongation in optic nerve diseases, whereas macular diseases show prolonged recovery time in photostress test. So this is again a homework for you. Find out details of photostress test. VEP, visual evoked potential, shows large latency delay in optic nerve diseases. So VEP is affected in optic nerve diseases, whereas macular diseases may not show large latency. They have small latency delay in visual evoked potentials. Contrast sensitivity, again greatest losses between 6 to 12 cycles per degree in optic nerve diseases, whereas greatest losses around 18 cycles per degree in macular diseases. Other diseases which other investigations required will be FFA and OCT to find out the macular pathology. Now, what other investigations you advise in retinal diseases? Visual acuity testing, which we have seen detail. Color vision testing, we have already seen. Field testing, automated perimetry, you will be taught in detail in glaucoma, how it is helpful in finding out visual field defects. Then macular function test, you will have to do homework and tell us what are the different macular function tests which are required to find out the macular pathology. Slit lamp biomicroscopy, visualization of retina on slit lamp with the help of the lenses that will be seen, will be taught to you in detail. Then direct and indirect ophthalmoscopy, ocular coherence tomography, fundus photography, fundus fluorescent angiography, endocyanin green angiography, USG B scan and electroretinogram, ERG, VEP and other electrodiagnostic tests. So these are the list of investigations which one must know before studying the retinal diseases. I will just read them again: visual acuity testing, color vision testing, field testing, macular function test, slit lamp biomicroscopy with 90D or 78D lenses, then direct ophthalmoscopy, indirect ophthalmoscopy, OCT, fundus photography, FFA, endocyanin green angiography, USG B scan and electrodiagnostic tests. These are the investigations you can advise to confirm the retinal diagnosis. As an undergrad student, you may not do in depth all the investigations, but I will just highlight the relevant investigations needed in case of retinal diseases. Slit lamp microscopy, you know the slit lamp. On slit lamp, if one has, generally slit lamp is for anterior segment evaluation, but if one has to see the details of the retina on slit lamp, one will have to use the lenses. These lenses are contact lenses or non-contact lenses. Contact lenses you have to apply over the cornea. Non-contact lenses you can hold in between the patient's eye and the slit lamp. The power of the contact lens and non-contact lenses required is plus 60 diopter, plus 70 diopters, 78 diopter and plus 90 diopters. These lenses you have to hold in front of the patient's pupil. Patient is sitting on the slit lamp and examiner using slit lamp biomicroscopy technique sees the fundus with the help of these lenses. Ruby lens is one more lens which is having high minus power, which is used to see the fundus on slit lamp. Advantages of these are binocularity because both eyes are used and the stereopsis. Because of the binocularity, 3D perception is possible. Disadvantage, periphery cannot be seen, and you have to restrict the visualization till the posterior pole of the fundus. Exercise related to this is for more for my PG students is the different types of lenses which can be used for diagnosis and for laser treatment. So find out the details of the different lenses which are used to deliver laser treatment on slit lamp for different conditions like diabetic retinopathy. Now I want the answer again from you also, what different lens, because laser lenses are different than the diagnostic lenses. Laser lenses require coating to prevent the damage from the laser lenses. So what are the different laser lenses used for slit lamp delivery of laser treatment? So these are the comparative points in the different lenses: 78, 98 and Goldmann fundus contact lens. So the details are mentioned in this slide, how image is affected by the different lenses and its principal use. Again, this is a direct and indirect ophthalmoscopy comparison. I think last time we discussed part of it, and I have also given exercise to you to find the merits and demerits of both techniques. Repetition of this is here. New investigation which everybody of you must know is OCT. This is optical coherence tomography. This is a non-contact technique, and it gives you high resolution between 5 to 10 microns and cross-sectional images of the retina using light waves. It works on the principle of low coherence interferometry, just like how A scan and B scan uses ultrasound. Just X-ray use X-rays to have a imaging of the target tissues. OCT uses near infrared light. It is using near infrared light, and the light creates cross-sectional images with on the principle of low coherence interferometry, and gives you cross-sectional images of the retina. So this is a picture of normal OCT. Exercise again for postgrad students, different techniques of taking OCT pictures of the retina, just like how topographic images are taken, how cross-sectional images are taken, what is raster scan, etc. will be submitted by PG students. But for you people, you can also find out what are the different color codes used in a scanning of OCT. Are they true colors or false colors, and what they denote different colors in a normal OCT. So these are the layer wise. Right sided diagram shows the 10 layers of the retina depicted by a OCT image, where ISOS junction is shown. Now this is replaced by ellipsoid zone. So what is ellipsoid zone, and how you identify a side of the eye, whether it is right sided or left sided, using OCT, and details of the pathologies, hyperreflectivity, hyporeflectivity, how drusen's are seen, what are the different zones giving rise to different pathologies, is the exercise for my PG students. They will be submitting me OCT details, but UG students can also in short tell me what are the different pathologies shown by the OCT. Photography is a tool where fundus photos are taken, and these photos can be used to educate the patient about the pathologies, or you can see the progression of the disease by taking subsequent photographs. And also ETDRS, early treatment diabetic retinopathy study, has used these fundus photographs to classify retinopathy into mild, moderate and severe, NPDR and proliferative diabetic retinopathy. So this fundus photo is an essential tool to see the different retinal pathologies, store them, use them subsequently to see the progress of the treatment, and to guide or educate the patient regarding his problems. FFA is a fluorescein angiography. So this fluorescein dye is used for angiography in fundus diseases. It is orange-red liquid. It absorbs light in the blue range and emits light in the yellow range. This emitted light is photographed when the injection of dye is done as bolus and timer is switched, and the area to be photographed depends on the area of pathology and what different pathological conditions one can come across in FFA is the leakage of the dye, if the dye is getting leaked, or if the vessel is blocked causing ischemia of a certain retinal sectors, or it can highlight the window defect, or it can have a hyperfluorescence, it can have a hypofluorescence. Again, it is the homework for you to find out the different terminologies we come across in fundus fluorescencology. What is autofluorescence? What is hyperfluorescence? What is hypofluorescence? What is block fluorescence? What is window defect? And what is filling defect? So my PG students will come out with different answers, and as a UG student, you also submit details of fundus fluorescence angiography. ICGA, it's not for UG students. Here indocyanine green dye is used, and sometimes we use both simultaneously. It is mainly used for ARMD to show the choriocapillaries. B-scan is a simple non-invasive tool for diagnosing lesions of posterior segment. Common conditions like cataract, where media are hazy, vitreous degeneration, detachment, trauma, choroidal melanoma, retinoblastoma can be accurately diagnosed with B-scan. Electrodiagnostics is again an important thing. It is mainly for postgraduate students, but as undergraduate students, you must know what is ERG, what is EOG, and what is VEP. So these are the ERG is a corneal measure of electrical activity generated at the retina in response to incident light. ERG results out of potential difference that exists between retina and the cornea, which is about 1 millivolt. This resting electric potential difference is modified by incident light, which results in a waveform recorded as an ERG, which gives a composite of the electrical activity from the photoreceptors, Muller cell, and retinal pigment epithelium. So it has A wave, B wave, and A wave is indicative of, it is a negative wave which shows the photoreceptor work, and B wave is a positive wave, it represents the bipolar cells. So the commonest disease where ERG is defective is retinitis pigmentosa. There are types of ERG like focal ERG and other types of ERG, which my PG students will submit the details of it in their homework.